Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, this is a channel about Dungeons and Dragons where we try and take a darker tone with everything we do here. So if you like edgier kind of content, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. Big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys for supporting the channel. Everything that you do for us is amazing, and we're able to keep doing things because of what you're able to help support us with. If you're interested in becoming a Patreon supporter, check out the link in the description. Check out our socials. They're in the description as well. And our good friends at Dice Legion. Use the promo code Sinister, get 10% off all your purchases. They have lots of great stuff for IRL games. Without further ado, we're going to jump into this week's video. We're talking about Plasmoids. Plasmoids come to us from Spelljammer. They are a space goo. They are a very, very unique species. The way they speak is very unique because they kind of have to absorb oxygen and hold it in their body and then push it through a tube that they make themselves to replicate sounds. It is a very, very strange entity, the Plasmoids. One of the things that really strikes out for me with Plasmoids is the best way to reference them is Majin Buu from Dragon Ball Z. Because of the way Buu's body is formed and the way it acts and like the almost like that gooey kind of texture to it, that's what a Plasmoid is. That's really why you have some of the abilities that we're going to go into later. And it really fits that kind of an entity. So yeah, there's a Sun Soul monk hiding there somewhere for someone to play. But that's a great way to kind of visualize the understanding of what a Plasmoid is. You just make it a little bit transparent and change the coloring. And you have what a D&D Plasmoid kind of looks like. Which I think is great because Strong Buu is my favorite incarnation of Buu. And what's better than being an evil, gooey creature? Your base stats are pretty simple. There are a couple of things that are variations. First and foremost, you can choose whether or not you are medium or small. Again, my feelings towards being small when you don't have to really doesn't seem to benefit you. I think there's a couple of videos out there saying that small is a new meta, but I don't really ever want to do that, so that's not particularly for me. Your creature type is ooze. So remember that whenever you're targeted by anything that targets a humanoid, because that is not what you are. Anything that targets a creature will target you, but anything else that has to target a humanoid or anything like that, or spells that would specifically target a kind of species, if it doesn't hit oozes, it can't affect you. That's a good thing to remember for DMs as well as players. You also get dark vision, which is great because you don't really technically have eyes. It's really funky, that kind of association. But yeah, colors and darkness really don't affect you very much because again, you're an ooze. You're a goo creature from space. Like, so how you see and how you perceive things is very different. So you have that very strange alien mind to you. So really try and use that to your advantage to kind of augment your normal pathways of thinking and see if you can be a little bit creative with your attitudes or problem solvings, because that would really work well and help like bring out some of the flavor of what a Plasmoid is. Amorphous. You can squeeze through a space as narrow as 1 inch wide, provided you are wearing and carrying nothing. You also have advantage on ability checks you make to initiate or escape a grapple. This is a very, it's almost like a secretive ability. Like it seems like it's really not useful, but it helps in quite a few manners. Having advantage on checks to initiate a grapple is very beneficial to you. Say you were playing something that had a usually high strength score, this might make you more likely to do a grapple if you weren't a barbarian, or if you didn't have access to something that gave you advantage on strength checks. That alone really is very interesting because you can now grapple, you have advantage on it. What it looks like might be like you just whip your arm around them and then it just spirals and spirals and spirals and you grip them. That's pretty cool. I love that imagery. The other thing about this is because you can squeeze into basically like a keyhole, and get in and out of things like that, it does kind of favor you towards characters that would have unarmored defense or something like that, like the monk or or like mage armor or something like that, where it's not something that you're actually carrying, it's just kind of like on you. Those kinds of things would really benefit you because you wouldn't need anything and you can get in and out of dangerous scenarios rather quickly. Or a weapon or something that returns to your hand when you command it. Something like that really opens the doorway to creative adventuring, because now you can try and scout. If you had a high stealth and perception, you could try and infiltrate and get out of bad places. It gives you this great opportunity to really use being an oozeling to your advantage and be weird about it, and really create these opportunities for yourself to do things that no one else could, because not many people are going to be able to squeeze through. Or maybe you have somebody that can just teleport out of a room, and now you and that person can try and save everybody, as opposed to just one person by themselves. Whatever these scenarios end up coming up with, your DM, whatever they do with it, you have escapes. You have very, very intricate ways that only you could do these things, which is a great moment for you to shine. Hold breath. You can hold your breath for 1 hour. This is pretty self-explaining. It's great in circumstances where you need maybe to dive underwater in like water campaigns or anything like that, where you might have to swim in a cave or something. This makes a big difference. That's something you definitely would want to have. But that doesn't really happen as often as circumstances where you cannot or you should not breathe. A room filled with a poisonous gas or something like that, or spores from like plants that are poisonous that kind of just erupt into a cloud in the area. Not being able to breathe for an hour is a great benefit, because you can avoid all of those checks and just walk right through. That's really the benefit for this. But again, this is very, very circumstantial. Natural resilience. You have resistance to acid and poison damage, and you have advantage on saving throws against being poisoned. This is actually really cool, because you can get into circumstances where poison occurs to you a lot. As a player, I love poisons. I think it's great. I think it was heavily nerfed in this edition. But that being said, as a player, you encounter more poison than it's worth for you to divvy out. So, having resistance to poison damage is great. Having advantage on saving throws against being poisoned is really, really, really beneficial to you, especially for a lot of traps and environmental circumstances that can be really problematic for you, especially if adventuring is a big part of your campaign, or if your DM is trying to throw other things at you that's not just monsters, to make encounters more challenging or interesting. Acid is another circumstance where it is a very strong damage type. Not a lot of things that you fight really have resistance to acid damage, so it's a good damage type for you to wield, but very rarely do you often encounter circumstances where you're fighting entities that do acid damage to you. But you do get 2 resistances, which is a big boost defensively for you, because if you take that and then say you went Barbarian, you now have opportunities to rage and be resistant to bludgeoning, piercing, slashing, and poison and acid. You can really build up resistances and make yourself pretty tanky, and this helps because poison is very, very common, and you have a very rare one that is an additional thing that's really beneficial to have. So this as a defensive ability is actually better than most people would think. Shape self. As an action, you can reshape your body to give yourself a head, 1 or 2 arms, 1 or 2 legs, and makeshift hands and feet. Or you can revert to a limbless blob. While you have human-like shape, you can wear clothing and armor made for a humanoid of your size. As a bonus action, you can extrude a pseudopod that is up to 6 inches wide and 10 feet long, or reabsorb it into your body as part of the same bonus action. You can use this pseudopod to manipulate an object, open or close a door or container, or pick up or set down a tiny object. The pseudopod contains no sensory organs, and it can't attack, activate magic items, or lift more than 10 pounds. Dependent on how well you know items in the game and where you are level-wise can depict what you can do. Yeah, you can drop a bag of caltrops from a ceiling and give yourself a nice area that enemies have to run through in order to get to you. You can open and close doors, which is always very beneficial. It's like Mage Hand in a lot of ways, except you do have to follow the rules of the pseudopod. Like, you're 10 feet long, so maybe you can kind of flop over and propel something, but you can't fly. You know, maybe you can kind of form yourself into a little parachute and slow fall a greater distance or something, but whatever it is, whatever it is. If you're good with Mage Hand, this gives you a great way to use all the benefits and utility that Mage Hand gives you without needing to have that particular cantrip. It does give you a funky, cool thing to do. It looks cool if you really could take the time out to consider it. Again, this reminds me of Majin Buu when he tried to absorb Gotenks and instead it absorbed Gohan. Like, that was a great thing that perfectly exemplifies what the pseudopod kind of does. Also, when you're shaping yourself, plasmoids can be like any kind of color. So for me, it makes sense that they can probably camouflage or rearrange their color scheme. So what I like to do is I like to shape my upper body as a normal humanoid, and then I like to make my lower body kind of seem like it's wearing pants. If that, you know, makes any sense to anybody, but that's kind of what I think. I think that makes a lot of sense. I think it looks cool, and when I play plasmoids, I think it really screams a monk to me for obvious reasons. But anything that has unarmored defense, you kind of want to wear pants. I think it's a very simple, courteous thing to do. So I kind of figure that as part of the being, which is a really interesting thing. And I always imagine whenever they sleep, they just turn into a puddle. I can't imagine them having a reason to hold shape. Maybe they'll fit into like a water glass or something and just like pass out. But I can't imagine them really maintaining a shape when they're unconscious, which is just funny to me. Our final thoughts. The Plasmoid gives you this great opportunity to create your character basically from scratch. You got to figure out how they eat. You got to figure out what they look like. We got to figure out whether or not they're wearing pants. Like, it's so many things are so up to the player and the DM to work together, and that sets such a great groundwork, because if you work on just the regular laws that are going to affect the Plasmoid and will put that same kind of effort into building the character with your DM, you'll have a great character that's like hooked into the story, and you can create a lot of great purpose and desire for achieving the goals, not just because you're there and they just happen to be available, but because they matter to your character. You can create such an alien mindset that's just has such an augmented way of thinking that's very different from the people of Toril or whatever setting you're in. It's so great, and you have a lot of really fun abilities. Like, the shape self is cool. I think every time you go to sleep, turning into a puddle is kind of funny. I love the idea of having a pseudopod that works like Mage Hand and can be 10 feet long. Like, you could probably stand it on itself, and that's pretty imposing. It's just great to have that kind of an ability that's so unique and wild and bizarre and fun and actually usable. It's just like Mage Hand, which is a very popular utility spell anyway. So get some, you know, get your teeth cut and try to be a little bit creative and see some kinds of great things you could do. Holding your breath is useful. There are a lot of traps and scenarios where there are poisonous rooms where you need to hold your breath or not breathe. Very, very beneficial to you. Standing in like your own like stinking cloud or cloud kill where you don't have to breathe, so you don't have to make those checks. Beneficial, wildly beneficial to you. It gives you the opportunity to do weird, strange things that nobody else can. You have advantage on poison saves. You have resistance to poison and acid damage, which is a lot when you consider how much resistances really get put out there just inherent in characters. All that being said and done, we're going to bring this video to a close. Really just wanted to say thank you guys so much. If you've made it this far into the video, really appreciate it. Definitely hit that like button, and if you enjoyed what you saw, hit that subscribe button. We're still doing our push for 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We can't do it without you. We're gaining some traction now, and we really, really appreciate it. Definitely check us out on our socials, and if you're just becoming a Patreon supporter, the link is in the description. Again, thank you all of our Patreon supporters, and thank you to our good friends at Dice Legion. Use the promo code SINISTER, get 10% off all of your purchases. With all things said and done, thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.